So, if you want a guy to commit to you or you want to get laid more as a guy, sort of thing, this video is for you. And if you don't have 5 minutes to allow me to explain this concept, you're going to continually struggle with the same relationship problems you've had up until this point. Now, the reason for this is this stuff isn't common knowledge, and I'm going to hopefully bring some light into this. And obviously, my advice is I broad stroke quite a bit. There's always exceptions, but for the most part, you're not the exception. Everyone likes to think they are, but you're probably not the exception. And on top of that, what I also would say is that this advice is pretty crass. I'm going to tell it to you as it is and not bullshit you and not pander to what you're probably used to hearing. And if you can accept that I'm trying to actually help you here, then you know that I'm coming from a good place. And if it is crass, it's best for you to hear. So this is what I want to point out to you is that as it goes in society, there is nothing a guy can do. If he wants to get laid, there is nothing a guy can do to get a girl to sleep with him that is ethical if she doesn't want to sleep with him. Plain and simple, right? And this makes women the gatekeepers of sex, right? If a girl doesn't want to have sex with you, if one particular girl doesn't want to have sex with you, there's nothing you can do to get sex from her, right? Pretty much. Now, on the flip side of this, with women, if a girl wants, this guy she's been sleeping with or whatever to commit to her, there is nothing that she can do other than like guilt, shame, and give him ultimatums. There's really nothing she can do if that guy doesn't want to commit to her. And that's just that essentially is kind of the trade-off, right? It makes men the gatekeepers of commitment and attention and women as the gatekeepers of affection and sex. So this kind of creates a transaction in a marketplace, right? Where men will trade attention and women will trade sex and affection. Now, this transaction is almost always made based on how one person perceives another person's value. So what this essentially means is that if you, let's say if you're a female watching this, right, and you come across like this rock star or something like this that you're really into, right, your childhood crush or something. Well, if you're holding all these cards, and all these are like, one card's like a kiss card, one card's like a blowjob card or something, one card's the sex card, and one card's, there's just like, do whatever the fuck you want to me card, right? If you come across somebody that you perceive as a really high value, you fucking throw the cards at them, right? You have no problem giving it all to them, right? Now, on the flip side, the same thing goes for men, right? If one of those cards is like, oh, attention, another card is like consistent attention, another one is, I want to like spend my life with this person, I want to date this person, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend, I want to marry this person, whatever it is. They have all these kind of attention and commitment cards. And you probably notice this, women, is that if a guy's like really, really into you, if he's like, uncalibratedly into you, right, where he doesn't really even know who you are, but he's built up who you are in his head. So he thinks you're this like amazing person or something, but you don't even know each other, right? And maybe this guy just like works with you or something, and he confesses his love to you. If you've ever had any situations like this, that guy's like, he'll like, please be my girlfriend. He'll just like throw the fucking girlfriend cards, right? He doesn't care, because he perceives his value is much lower than your value, so he's gonna like risk it all. It's like that's the card game he's playing, this transaction that's happening. So this is a pretty brutal way of doing things, this transactional way of doing things. But this is kind of what's happening on a biological level, on a very primal level of things. Now, we're not just primal animals. We also have a very intricate and complex psychology. And this pulls into a second thing. So the first thing we're going to call it is primary drives, biological drives. The second is psychological values, psychological drives, right? Now, these are the things where it's like shared experience. So when we talk about somebody that we ideally want, it's not just for sex. We don't just like, I just want someone who will have sex with me, or it's like, I just want someone who will commit to me. We're concerned with compatibility. We're concerned with like things that actually matter to us, values. Is this person going to get in the way of my goals in life? Is this person going to be an asset in my life? Is this person going to actually help me or hinder me, right? And these are more along the lines of values, psychological values. Now, what I'm talking about right now is this difference between getting what we want biologically versus getting what we need psychologically. Now, the biggest issue I see with most people in the modern dating world right now is that they cannot understand how this biology overrides their psychology. So they make decisions biologically, and then they try to deal with all the problems it causes psychologically, instead of seeing this as a whole system. Now, what's actually going on here is that there's two ways to achieve these things. If you want to achieve the biological goals of sex versus attention or commitment or whatever, you have to play by the biologically set rules, which are the evolutionary rules. So what this means is that there's really two paths to getting what you want in dating and with people and stuff like this. There's what I call evolution and what I call involution. I don't know if involution is an actual word, but we're going to go with it. Essentially, what these look like is evolution is you as an individual evolving to the marketplace's wants. You evolve into what the majority of people are into biologically, okay? So what this kind of looks like is like, if you're overweight, you're gonna have a harder time, right? You're just gonna have a harder time. If you're not like naturally attractive, you're gonna have a harder time. If you're not ambitious or you're not confident, you're gonna have a harder time, right? There are set things that people find almost universally attractive. And if you can tap into those and you can evolve into that person, you will get the biological rewards of whether it is sex you want or whether it is commitment or attention that you want, right? So if you can recognize that you can actually evolve and change yourself to getting those things, that's kind of how you do it. If you're a guy right now and you're like, I don't get laid often. I'm not really a ladies' man, if you will, right? You can evolve into someone that a large majority of women will find very attractive, and you'll have an abundance of sex. And vice versa, you can, if you're a woman right now, you can evolve into someone that a lot of men are throwing themselves at you. They are trying to get you to date them, and they'll let you take them on dates and stuff like this. You can become that person if you want. I'm not saying that's going to make you happy though. But it's very possible to do. Very, very possible to do. Now, will that make you fulfilled? No, because again, we have a psychological thing that we need as well. That's where involution comes in. This is where you don't necessarily follow the evolutionary drives, but rather you double down on who you are. You double down on your personality traits. You kind of wave your freak flag, if you will. And by waving it, you naturally invite way more criticism, way more rejection into your life, but you also make yourself well known with what you're about. So I'll even use my own life for an example. I'm obviously very big into personal development. It's what I talk about, it's what I teach, it's what I do for a living and such. All of my social media profiles are really just about what I like to talk about, talking about this kind of stuff and helping people. Talk about psychology, philosophy, these sort of things. Now, by me talking about this, obviously there's gonna be a lot of people who, they see this and they're like, that's kind of weird. Right? They're like, that's kind of weird. Like, I don't get what this dude's doing and sort of thing. This guy looks like a fucking loser doing this. Whatever, right? Everyone has their opinions on this. But there's going to be, and I'll tell you what, the actual ratios are pretty ugly. This isn't super accurate, but it's kind of what with some of the testing that I had done, I typically find that of every 10 people that I come across, and they kind of get a gist of what I'm about and stuff, I would say that 7 of those 10 people are kind of indifferent, like, oh, okay, whatever. 2 of them very much dislike it. They're just like, fuck that dude. And one person's like, whoa, holy shit, that's awesome. If involution is really about you finding that one person who thinks it's fucking awesome, and it's about you finding that person who, or people in your life, and whether they're friends or a romantic partner, who think they're that 1 out of 10 people that are really into you, okay? Now, yes, you're obviously going to come across many other compatibility factors, but my point is this. If you actually look at what I've done, I've really tailored my social media to the things that I'm really about. And I'm okay with getting rejected or people not liking it in exchange for higher quality people in my life, or higher quality by my perceptions of it. People who are into what I'm into, who value what I value, and who think what I'm doing is pretty cool. Now, that comes with a ton of rejection, a ton of public heat. I take more public heat than anyone I know, just because I kind of stand out. I'm a little different with this. I wave that freak flag around. But I also focus very heavily on the evolutionary side of things. I'm aware of what drives our biological behavior. And I know that most people will they'll pick their dating partners, pick their romantic partners, first and foremost, because of what biologically feels right, and then secondly, what psychologically fits. And this is kind of just how human beings are, right? When we have sex, when we get attention, this sort of stuff, it literally gives us a chemical cocktail to sip on that is so addictive that it blinds us of our logical thinking, right? We can't even, psychology and values go right out the window when we're attracted to someone, right? And that chemical cocktail is a automatically produced thing for us that we can't avoid. So it takes a lot of awareness and a lot of consciousness to kind of put the brakes on and go, okay, does this person actually is this person like indicative of what I want for a partner? Is this person going to actually fit into my life, sort of thing, and the psychological values? But getting back to this, you have these huge strategies. And like I say, if you actually look at what I've done in my life, I purposely really waved that freak flag. That's my involution. It's me doubling down on what I'm all about. It's me getting confident and congruent in what I like. You know, the funniest thing that I've seen in my life is that personal development and self-help and stuff has always just been, for me, it's always just been this thing that I've been deeply passionate about from a very young, I was raised on it, right? So I was growing up with like Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and like audiobooks and stuff like this. And you know, this is something that I've done my entire life. And growing up, I got made fun of quite intensely for it, right? And you know, yeah, it's probably pretty nerdy or whatever, right? I had like a CD Walkman with the Brian Tracy audios, and then I'm going from, you know, class to class in junior high and in high school and stuff. And, you know, it's probably not very cool, right? But it was what I was really into. And you know, I even dated people who they weren't into this stuff, and they're just like, and they hated when I talked about it. They hated when I talked about like this stuff I was passionate around. Now, and it's just because it wasn't their values, and that's totally fine, right? But my point is that it's funny watching how throughout the years, because it's become so ingrained in my personality, it was something that I hid for many years. Now that I start to publicly come out with this and I start to really talk about these things and my ideas around how to, you know, best practices in the world and this sort of such, as I've started to do that, I become really congruent and confident about this, and I talk about it with such conviction, as you probably notice. As I started to do that, I got a lot of heat for it. But what I also noticed is that the people who stuck around, the people who I would consider like my dearest friends and stuff, and like people that are, you know, you always laugh because you look at like one point in your life and you're like, oh, these are the best friends I'm ever going to have. And you're like, no, like it does change. Like you do find more compatible people in your life as long as you stick to these principles. But what ends up happening is that you really surround yourself with some really good people who are really compatible for you and are really supportive of what you're doing. You don't have to defend what you're into with them, right? And when this happens, you'll notice that personal development or whatever it is that you're into becomes pretty cool. And it's just like, whoa, that's fucking sick. And you know, it's like you'll tell people stuff and like, whoa, that's fucking cool. They'll see your book collection or they'll see the work you do and they're just like, whoa, that's so sick. And now personal development's the cool thing, right? Now psychology and philosophy, those are cool things to study, right? Business or, you know, or whatever the other stuff that someone might have been into, right? Or medicine or something like that. That's no longer cool, right? What's cool now is the psychology philosophy thing, right? And that really is just because you become so congruent with what you're about and you're okay with the rejection of people not liking it or not being for them, that you make it the cool thing to do. So the people who come around you and stuff, they might have not had even a natural, or they might have not already liked personal development or psychology in my case, but through being exposed to it, they might have had a natural proclivity for introspection, and that would have led them into this anyways. But it was always this weird self-help section in the bookstore, and there was all the weird books on there, and it seemed a little odd. So I didn't really go through that. That's like the rah-rah stuff, right? Like this kind of idea, these kind of judgments on it. But essentially, it's like as they start to like kind of meet me or hear me talk about these sort of things, it's very obvious to them. They're like, oh man, this is actually not what I thought it was, and it's super cool. And then they get into it. They start reading books, and they, you know, and this is kind of what ends up happening. But this is only really possible, not just in a friendship perspective, but especially with a dating perspective. This is only possible when you double down on what it is that makes you unique, what it is that you intrinsically are into, and you have no problem letting people walk if they're not compatible for you. That's the most powerful thing. You come from an abundant mindset, something that's like, it's a realization. It's really a logical way of viewing people that is essentially saying like, if you're not compatible, I don't want you in my life. I don't want to waste time. There's so many people out there. I'd rather be alone than with people that are not what I'm about, because they'll hinder my ability to find people that I'm about. Because say, for example, you have friends that aren't really into what you're into, and you go out with them. There might have been someone who you came across with a group of friends or something like that, who would have been your newest best friend or something. But because you had all your old friends there that weren't really into what you're into, they would have naturally kind of like judged the person on that. You guys would have never even got to talking about that subject. You don't realize what you're missing out on by keeping things that aren't right for you in your life, right? The brain can only really measure what it can see, right? So what we can visually see is what we can measure. And because of this, you can only ever measure what you can lose from any situation, not what you can gain from letting things go. Now, this is super difficult to grasp, but if you realize that by letting things go, you're unaware of the potential and the possibilities available to you in any given circumstances. So, because you just can't see it. Your brain can't measure it. It can only see what you're going to lose. So a lot of people choose just okay relationships, or they'll settle for people in their life that aren't right for them just because they're afraid of this seems like the best I could possibly get, right? And that comes from this evolutionary perspective of I have to act and do a certain thing in a certain way to get a certain result, and you will get those results if you follow those rules. You will actually get those results. You will be nothing, you won't look like yourself, you won't be like yourself, but if you are able to understand why we make our selections sexually, our short-term selections sexually, whether you're a female or a male or whatever, you're going to get what you want in that regards, but it's not going to make you happy. What will make you happy is getting the psychological things sorted, the values sorted out. So this is a long-winded rant on stuff. Hopefully you found it entertaining, but what this essentially is a blueprint, a mechanism that when it comes down to should I be myself or should I evolve into someone who's more attractive, it's like you want to do both. Evolving to the marketplace will let you have choice. It'll let you actually get the door open with people, but involution will keep people in there. Involution will actually attract the right people into your life. If you do just involution, you might have a very, very lonely life, but you might come across that one person. But the problem is, if you only have that one person, you're going to be so needy with that person. You're gonna fuck it up. Essentially, you're gonna get insecure. They're gonna leave. You're like, I've never found a single person who's like me, who's into all the stuff I'm into, and you'll be too afraid to let them go, and you'll mess up that relationship. But what you want, if you have evolution, is you have abundance, right? You're always meeting new people. You're always naturally attracting people that could be attractive to you, or maybe not attracted to you, but or naturally attracted, psychologically speaking. But it's like, what you end up doing is when you have an abundance like that, you're okay to let people walk away. So this is why you want to focus on both. What I typically find, though, is people will only focus on one side or the other. And this is where I can kind of see a lot of their relationship problems come from. They're either not meeting people that are compatible for them, right? So they have the marketplace thing figured out. They have the evolution thing figured out. They know how to attract guys. They know how to attract women. And that's all figured out for them. They have no problem getting sex or getting commitment if that's what they wanted, but they're not finding compatible people. They don't feel very fulfilled in relationships. Relationships seem transactional to them. If that's the case, then you know that you need to focus on this involution and start saying no to people. Flip side, though, if you're not meeting anyone, you have not a lot of abundance, you don't even have the opportunity to open up the doors or tell people about yourself, share values, then you need to focus on the evolution side. So some food for thought. Hopefully you guys found it insightful. But I shall talk to you guys later.